Slash has a band. No, not the other band. This band. Slash featuring Myles Kennedy and the Conspirators. 2 of the Conspirators have already been on. Brent Fitz, Todd Kearns. We had him back in the Coffee Cast, but I've switched to music, so I got the kid on. Frank Sidoris, rhythm guitar player for Slash's band, talks about growing up in Vegas, what it was like auditioning, getting a gig, leaving a gig, going to the studio, recording a record with one of his idols. What's it like touring around the world with them? What's it like being on a record with them? The whole thing. We're getting into it. Part 1. That's right, part 1. There's so much stuff we had to break it up into 2. So part 1 this week with Frank Sidoris, brought to you by my friends at Varia Brewing. They're going to send you something really rad for your kitchen. It's a 3-in-1 coffee maker. It makes mocha. God, it makes, what else does it do? It does the cold brew. It does the French press, you name it. You can make tea in it. There's a whole bunch of stuff you can do. It's a really rad addition to your kitchen. All you got to do is like, share, enter into the draw. I'm picking a random. You're going to win one. Episode 4 of the Music Cast with Frank Sidoris from Slash's band. Part 1 starts right now.
Let's rock today. Out on stage, I get to bring all of these people together for 3 hours.
You're listening to the Brenton on Tour Music Cast, brought to you by people who love music, people who make music, and all things, well, music. You still don't really know who he is, but he just helped you stop drinking shitty coffee on the Coffee Cast. So, get off to John, grab a ghetto blaster, hit record and play at the same time, and learn a thing or two about music. It's the Brenton on Tour Music Cast. Here's BD.
There it is, some Slash featuring Myles Kennedy and the Conspirators. And I've got the third conspirator to appear on the podcast, Mr. Frank Sidoris. How you doing, buddy?
The third and final conspirator coming at you.
That's right. There's no more conspirators. You guys are out of conspirators.
That's it, yeah.
You have a bunch of fill-in conspirators, but the core conspirator group
right?
has been on the podcast, and here we are.
Crazy to consider.
Welcome, buddy, all the way from Las Vegas. How you doing, my friend?
I'm very good. It is a wonderful transitional day season-wise in Vegas, which we get about usually 2 weeks of fall at the most. So all the leaves have changed, and we are enjoying this weather.
My mom was just down there with my sister and stuff, and they had a great time. So
Awesome.
They said the weather was perfect and rad. I'm guessing the transition time is a balmy 80 degrees. Is that what it is?
You know what's funny is that it's so random, but you just, no one in the world expects it, because I'm one of the few people that was actually born here, and I could speak from experience that it gets cold here. Like, but it's not Canada cold like you guys are used to, but a good 29 degrees Fahrenheit. But right now, a week ago it was about high 40s, and today it's about 76. So it's just all over the map right now. It's a weird time.
But you're a Vegas guy, right? You're born and raised, yeah?
Born and raised, yeah.
So has it been, like this always? Because I keep hearing about the blasting heat of that state. And
yeah.
I just heard about it snowing last year. I was in Vegas a couple years ago, my birthday in February, and went out to Charleston there, and it was snowing at one of the pubs or something like that. And I was like, what the hell's going on here?
Oh, it was crazy.
In Vegas, so.
It was the worst snow we received in years. And I think the last time it snowed that hard was probably 12 years ago or so, maybe 11, where, the city doesn't, why would we ever spend the money to buy the salt and to, de-ice runways? So we just don't need it. That's not even a thing. And so when it does actually snow, the entire city just melts down. Well, shuts down essentially.
I was going to say, it must just shut down.
Completely. Yeah. Like all the streets, no one knows how to drive in it too. And to, the craziest thing, I'll tell you this, we were out in Paris when it happened. It was 2 days of snow in Vegas, and my wife was trying to fly out to Paris. And the day that she was supposed to fly, the entire airport shut down. That was the day it snowed. It was so bad. Believe it or not.
Vancouver can get like that. I mean, we get a lot of rain, but when they get the heavy snow, it's a thing. Mm-hmm. It's a thing. Mm-hmm. And the rest of the country just laughs at us because, well,
you're not winning.
We laugh at them the rest of the time with our weather, but the occasional snow, it just shuts the city down. So it's funny to watch.
Yeah.
Welcome aboard. I'm assuming you got some coffee there.
I sure do. I'm
You would
all the octane in the world. I'm ready to go.
Yeah, that's right. You and Mr. Fitz leading the coffee charge in that band, I believe.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it. I have. Did he mention the list that I have? I don't know if you guys have gone into that, or maybe me and you.
No,
have gone
we never
into
got into that. What is this list you speak of?
So this, it's something that I've never given to anybody as a whole. Like I've never sent the entire thing over, but it's a compilation of every single coffee shop I've ever been to, worth writing down across the entire world. So it starts in LA, and it literally just spans the entire globe. And so like say you were going to Dubai, or you told me you're going on tour in Australia or wherever. And what I always do, for friends and anybody, I just give them like a little copy and paste of that specific city they're in, and just send them the best coffee if they're into coffee. And a lot of friends have told me to publish this or do something with it, but I actually, I just don't know where to go with it first off. But I really love it because, when I'm back in Japan or I'm back wherever, I just reference like, oh, right, there's that killer place. And Brent Fitz and I go and we re-enjoy it. It's awesome, man. Also, you know what? You're the only person I feel comfortable. You and Brent, I can send it to you guys. The two Brents.
What a guy. Because up to this point, I'm relying on Sprudge out of Portland, and I'm relying on European Coffee Trip. So if you got other ones, I'll add them to the list, because I'm generally traveling with some coffee heads. And I missed you on the Coffee Cast. We only banged out 10 episodes. So this is, I wanted to pick your brain a little bit about it, which, we'll
I was going to say, no pressure, but I've got all your answers for, a bunch of cities, but it's been fun. I love it.
So Vegas, born and raised. What's growing up Vegas like for Frank?
Well,
you know what I mean, with the music scene.
Well, it's interesting because for me, you have I'll just back it up. There's the normal life that you can actually be raised around in Vegas that a lot of people just assume doesn't exist because, and I can't blame everybody for thinking this, but it's the Strip and that's all they assume. But there's the entire just outer ring of Vegas that is, Henderson, Summerlin, that's your suburbs. And that's where all of us are, you go to school and you live a normal life. But if you want, just 8 miles down the way is the Strip, and you could see shows and do that entire thing. So when I was growing up here, I was born in 88, but the 90s Vegas was when it transitioned back into a more family Vegas. So for years, it was just an adult playground. That was the idea. That's what they always called it. And then not like late 80s to 90s is when it became like the family. They had Wet and Wild, this huge water park in the middle of the Strip. They had theme parks everywhere and tons of family shows, right? And my mom, she's been a dancer for her whole life, and then she now a producer, but back then her and my dad worked on the Strip, so my sister and I would constantly be eating in buffets for free or seeing shows weekly with family, and that's the thing about Vegas is that if you lived here, the only time you went to the Strip usually was to take your family to go see a show. But for me and my sister, that was our life weekly. We were always down there, and I really love it because we embraced it, and it's still very much a part of our life. But it's Vegas it's not what a lot of people assume it to be, but it's you could be normal growing up here. It's
when they take down the hotels, like I saw they just took down the Hard Rock in the last couple of days, or they're in the process.
They're about to, something like that.
Is that a piece of you going with it as well?
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
we as we see it on TV, and everyone flies in twice a year, and they could do their Thursday to Sunday, and they cry a little bit when the Imperial Palace closes, and then they put they still go up and get a good deal at the Excalibur, and they do the whole thing. But it's changed from the standpoint of the Vegas that we all grew up with in the movies, even when you see these go away. But as a resident, I got to think every single time one of those old places comes down, it stings a bit, right? Like
I like the way you put that, because a piece of me definitely goes with, I could think of a bunch of hotels that have gone so far. It's just, if you back it up, it was, I used to stay at the Frontier Hotel. We kind of lived there for a minute, and we were there for maybe like a month or so. And I used to love that place. And, 2006 or 7, that got imploded. And, that one hurt, but the entire family, everybody goes out, the entire city goes and stands on a parking garage across from this, across the street from that hotel. We just watch it go down, and it's the worst, but it's also something I was raised around. You've seen it for years, but the Frontier. Then for me, the worst was the Riviera because my mom and dad worked there, and we were there constantly. Like that was, I think,
second home.
Yeah, I spent more time in that hotel than any other, and that was rough. So what we ended up doing before it went, we got their presidential suite for a stupid deal because they were closing, and we just had a huge party with all the old cast members of the shows that my mom used to dance in, and we all just hung out in there one more time, and then they blew it up. And the Hard Rock, I had my 21st birthday there. Everyone spent time there. That center bar was the place, But to really answer your question, it's like any of those classic ones that are. I don't know. Just I spent so much time in a lot of them and across the entire board, like all of the strip, and so to see any of it go just sucks. And next up is Circus Circus.
Ugh. And that's just famous.
Legendary. Yeah.
That's a legendary, right? So,
yep, that and Tropicana.
But does it also balance it with a little bit of excitement as to the infrastructure that's coming into the city as a result of these changes, or is it one of those things that you're feeling like, oh man, that's it. It's just the whole thing is changing. It's not the same. Like I'm curious. Like my wife's in the gaming industry, and I know this is a music podcast, but I am curious from a standpoint of a resident there that was born and raised there, mm-hmm. who's going to replace everybody. Because I know no one under 30 is gambling right now. So where's everybody going? What are they going to do? And they're tearing down Circus Circus, all the low. All the cheap places to gamble, and it's all replaced with expensive places. Like what's next for Vegas, and that whole scene. And that's, I guess, a different podcast, but I am curious.
That is an interesting question because
as to your thoughts on that.
It's funny. I don't know, maybe how vinyl, and I don't know if it'd be the same, how things come back around after some time goes on. But you still have these places like downtown Vegas, the very first casino, and I think it's the I'm forgetting the name. I'm forgetting the name of this place, but it was like the address is actually 1 Fremont Street.
Right.
And these places are actually destinations for people to go down there and just gamble. But I don't know, man. It's kind of a weird transitional situation we're in because, the Circus Circus, the Tropicana, and the Flamingo are pretty much, as far as the strip goes, the last ones holding on. And we'll see. The shame for me is that the Riviera, like I mentioned, was imploded for a huge parking lot, Joni Mitchell style. And
it's a shame. It's a shame that the other side of it too is that when, us growing up, at least, every movie we've ever seen about Vegas growing up, it was, all the old hotels were all featured and all the rest of it. And now all your little cuts of Vegas are going to be like VIP tents. And
right.
And the Aria and the Cosmo and people not gambling and just sitting around drinking $40 martinis. So it's it's going to be it's a weirder thing to me. But anyways, so where was the first? Walk me through coming through that. Obviously, there's a whole scene there just on its own. Bands coming out of Vegas that are inspiring you to play. Where does that start for Frank? Where is that, like, obviously you're in the entertainment business, you're surrounded by musicians, your mom's dancing, there's all this stuff going on.
Yeah.
Is it like, give me that guitar, this is what I'm going to do? How does that start for you?
Well, it's funny. Yeah. My whole world was, like I said, there's entertainment business around at all times, but nobody played an instrument in my family, really. My mom played the piano, but I was the only one that actually went towards the guitar. And so there was a couple of friends that played guitar because I'm a skateboarder. I skated my entire life, and that's all I did. But I picked up the guitar at 15 because a couple of my friends were playing, and I just, I was always a huge music person. My whole family loved music, just as fans. But it was one of those things where, like, I needed to take it to my music appreciation to the next level. It's like I love these Alice Cooper songs, I love these Beatles songs, but I can't play them. So it's that next step. And once I got to play them, I just jammed all the time. And I slowly, I think in high school, just playing guitar with a couple guys, it just turned into a thing of like, well, I'm playing in this band and we need a guitar player. So the short version was just maybe a year or two out of high school, I ended up joining a band. And we ended up calling it St. Rose, like the street, which, and the hospital. if in Vegas. So if you're not local, it's a lot cooler. But if you're in Vegas and you're like, your name's St. Rose, it's pretty funny. But
it's not cool until it becomes a thing, and then it becomes the coolest thing ever.
Then it becomes, yeah. So think if we did explode, then people would drive on St. Rose or go to the hospital. Oh shit, dude, it's like that band. But
Totally.
yeah. So the guitar player of that band, his name is Robert Zakarian. It was me and him. We were best friends, and still to this day. But he ended up going on to play guitar for this band called Adelita's Way. You ever heard of them?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
yeah.
They're still going, but he's no longer with them at this point. But he was the first of us to go on tour. I followed shortly after. I ended up joining a band called The Cab. So they're a local. I mean, it's funny because they're local. They came from Vegas, but they blew up. They were kind of, like Panic at the Disco and Fall Out Boy, Paramore. All of them, they exploded at the same time. And The Cab was one of them. And so a couple years down the road, they needed a guitar player. And so I had no touring experience. I was actually supposed to play guitar for Cirque du Soleil. I was going to play in their Elvis show at Aria, speaking of Aria.
No.
So that was, that was as far as I had planned, because we were playing in bands and locally, which is cool. But, as far as actually having a job as a guitar player was pretty exciting. Like, okay, I'm going to play for Cirque. And then this opportunity came along. The lead singer was just like, hey, man, we have a space and I know you're going to do the Cirque thing, but what do you think? Would you like to go on tour? So we just did a run of the States, opening up for like Simple Plan. And we ended up touring Canada with Avril Lavigne. We played Rogers Arena.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple different Rogers, but depending on where it is, there's one in Vancouver, there's one in Edmonton now, and they're all over the place. So
yeah,
played one of the Rogers places.
Yeah, I was gonna say they're everywhere. So my first touring experience was with this band. It was cool because we just we did the States, we hit Canada, but we got to play all the hockey arenas, Calgary and Edmonton, and then we went to Singapore and Australia, did the Soundwave Festival, Japan. And so I had like a nice, 8 to 9 months of just straight global touring for the first time. So this would have been 2011.
That was the first time that you went out.
That's the first time. But now, mind you, I actually had met Brent Fitz. So my current drummer, I had met him randomly. It's such a fun story because when me and this guy met, it was just immediately like, we're friends. We just talk about coffee and guitars and music. So we're all, we love the same stuff, right? So randomly, I see him at a sushi joint in Vegas, and I was with a friend who had opened for Slash. So I didn't know Brent personally, but I knew him from, he played with Alice Cooper. So I knew that. That's all I knew. And we get introduced to each other, and we talked all night about, all sorts of stuff. So then he's like, hey, let's get a coffee and we'll hang. So for the next, roughly, I think it was like maybe a year or so, we just hung out. And there was no promise of any sort of gig. I just knew he played with Slash, and we would just chat about, his travels and blah, 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 my travels. And if you could believe this, I love this story because it's just so, looking back on it, I don't know how I wasn't more exhausted, but last minute they had gotten rid of their guitar player in Slash's band. So, at the time it wasn't called Slash featuring Myles Kennedy and the Conspirators. It was just Slash featuring Myles Kennedy, And they had this other guitar player, and they got rid of him in right towards the end of their recording of Apocalyptic Love, which was the first Conspirators title. So Brent, I get a call from him like, hey, this is I don't know if you can make this happen, but he kind of prepped me for. There was some time like back and forth, like, look, this might happen. Can you come down to LA? We're trying out guitar players. And so he gave me like, there was a couple weeks notice of like, okay, well, this might happen. Maybe you could do it. If you can come down, we'll figure it out. And I'm in the middle of a tour. So I'm back in Canada with the Cab, right? So this was Super Bowl Sunday, 2012. So in February. And I ended up getting the green light. So I buy a plane ticket. It was the only day off we had. So it just perfectly worked out. It was on a Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday. I flew from Toronto to Los Angeles I went straight to the rehearsal space and just auditioned for Slash based on, and they took, because of Brent's recommendation, he just said, this is a guy I know. And it wasn't an open call. It was definitely like one of those, like, hey, we got a friend. I think, we could trust him, have him come down kind of thing. So went down there and just played a bunch of the Slash solo songs and played Paradise City, and it just felt great. Like the guys, it was so loose and everybody had a good time. And I just thought, no matter what, if I walk away from this, like that was cool. Totally. I left at 6 a.m. Toronto time. So I was, I got to LA, I was out of my mind, but I'm high from the experience. I'm feeling great. And we gelled. And so I walked away thinking, look, if I don't get the gig, I had a good time with these guys. We played Paradise City. I played it with Slash. I can walk with that. And that's a high note, whatever. And I think the next morning at 3 a.m., I flew to Buffalo and met up with the tour again. And so 2 days later, I'm in Allentown, Pennsylvania, and I get a text from Slash. And he's like, hey, man, I'm going to call you tomorrow. And that's all I get. I'm like, okay, sounds good, man.
Yeah, so like, you're supposed to function, right?
Yeah, I was like, what? Oh, okay, sounds good, man. Talk to you soon. So then he calls me after sound check, and he's just cool as hell. Like, hey, man, how's it going? How's your gig? Blah, blah, blah. And he's like, so by unanimous decision, we want you in the band. I mean, how do you feel about that? I was like, and I got so much going on. I'm good. And then I hung up the phone. That's not true. So I said, hey, dude. No, I said, absolutely. I would love to. And he was so cool, man, because he doesn't even know this, but he goes, well, is there anything you need? Like, do you need any gear? Do you need any amps or guitars? Like, he's asking me this. And to answer his question truthfully, I absolutely needed amps and I needed more guitars because I only had 3 guitars worth touring with. And I only had 1 killer amp. So I was like, I don't have any backups. And with running with Slash's world, you need 2 separate rigs of, at a minimum, 2 heads, 2 cabinets, 8 to 10 guitars in each rig. You know what I mean? And I only had 3. But I lied to him and said, no, I'm good. I got everything. And so just to make sure I was solidified and I didn't have any sort of hiccups, I just said yes. And through Brent and a lot of friends, and Gibson guitars coming through. They said, look, they loaned me a couple guitars. They ended up just letting me keep, and I ended up buying a bunch over time. But, I worked hard to make that work. But, in hindsight, knowing Slash now, it would have been as simple as like, what do you need? Okay, no problem. But
wow. I mean, hey, you're heading to Buffalo and you're thinking about that gig. You're not thinking about, you're just happy to be out touring, right? On the other one.
Right.
And the next thing you know, you get this gig. And so walking into that audition with Slash, like your mind's, obviously you have a bit of background because you're talking to Fitz and you guys have been talking. Are you going in with these songs already in the can? Were you woodshedding at home, like just on your own, just like, hey, maybe one day I'll get to play with Slash? Or is it just you're such a consummate pro, you got these things, in your back pocket and you can just rock it at any point. And which is a lesson, I think, anybody listening who is wondering about how this business works, this could be a very valuable lesson for you. So how does Frank walk into rehearsal and nail it?
Well, for me, I'm the man, and my wife will completely agree, and we could do a whole podcast on this alone, but my preparation and the way how I like to be prepared is just it's just ridiculous. Like I go above and beyond to where I just need to relax and I shouldn't do it as much as I do. But, I worry a lot. Like, so, with the audition process, it was like, hey, Brent, like what songs what are you going to play? What do you think we're going to play? He's like, I really don't know. And I'm like, well, okay, shit, no problem. But I could wing it if we have to. But, of course you want to be prepared as you can be. But I learned that most of the time that I sweat and then I worry about things like, man, I'm going to be, I've played corporate gigs with dudes that are just crazy pros, crazy, like they have this reputation of, or whatever you think about these people. And you're like, man, I wonder how this guy's going to be if I don't show up and I don't know every single note to this song. I know this guy's going to call me out on it. Or, I think I'm just curious, I have no idea how it's going to go. And I assume the worst. And ultimately, by assuming the worst, I prepare and I show up, and 99% of the time, everything is way easier than I prepared for. You know what I mean? Like, I roll in there stressing out, like learning the songs note for note, and everybody there is like, wait, so how does that drum intro go again? And I'm like, oh man, but but I will say that has definitely helped me. Ultimately, brought out the best in me. Is that I prepare almost for the worst. And there's plenty of times where it's like you roll in and it's like, oh, you know what? We don't have a set. We don't have anything going on. You just wing it. And that's always cool because it's loose, But the way I've always operated was it's like, okay, give me the set list and I'm gonna crush this. I'm gonna just study it as much as I can and learn the songs better, as good as I possibly can, and I roll in there overly prepared usually.
And I don't think if you're doing this for a living and you choose to do it, like there is a difference between doing this for a living and kind of pretending to do it for a living. Mm-hmm. And then there's weekend warrior. And then there's so many versions of doing it for a living. Mm-hmm. And most of the guys that I know that are really doing it for a living are all the way in. And that's the same. I know that sounds cliche. It's the same with any kind of profession. You're 10,000 hours, the whole shebang. But there is a substantial amount of people who get by on winging it. And I think that eventually that catches up. Hopefully it doesn't catch up to anybody judging podcasts. But as I make my way through and stumble through, but this is me learning how to play guitar, Frank. So, it kind of goes through this process and, it's, every podcast is hopefully smoother than the last one and it keeps going. And it's like any musician, the first time they run a song and then the second time they run a song, and then you just hope that the work that you put in eventually pays off. And I think that in this particular case, in your particular case, you've proven that being over prepared really in the end, and you've probably seen this in life anyways, that you get nervous, you over prepare, and then you get there and it's not a big deal. That's what 100%. trying out for a ball team, that's trying out for a hockey team. That's everything. At the end of the day, if you've put the work in, talent wins. I've always been a huge fan of talent always wins. I find that it's usually, you put the time in, you're going to win.
Yeah.
And
no doubt about it, man.
You're going to win. So that's a hell of a journey for you to go, and obviously that was big enough going on the Avril thing because at that point she was, doing great and still doing great. And she's doing her thing. And
like the basic, cause I've talked to a couple people about it before, but personally, mentally that I was there for all of this, to where if you said, like, I am the type of person to where if you say, hey, tomorrow I need you to at least know 6 songs and do this and do this and do this. I'm like, okay, well, I've never done this before, but I'm going to do it. Or like, I'm trying to think of a good example of that. Like I need 25 songs, 30 songs in 2 days. It's like, okay, I got it. I'll do my absolute best. Like I'm going to go for it. And with this cab situation, it was my first touring, right? Like first touring experience. I learn the songs, I go on tour, I have a great time. And then just a couple months in, it's like, hey, or, 8 months after, it's like, can you audition for Slash? And it's like, I know that that's where my heart would be. Like I listen to everything and I truly, truly listen to everything. But, playing in a rock band is something I love so much. It is just, it just felt like this is the perfect gig for me right now. I want to do this so bad. So did everything I possibly could to get it. And I thought, I was 23 and everybody, I forget like how old they would have been at the time, but roughly like 43, 45-ish, everybody else was. And so I remember Todd even saying, he's like, yeah, like the kid, we're going to hire the kid. Like, before we even played, he was like, wait, how old's this guy? And I don't blame him, right? It's like, well, I would feel the same way in his situation, his position, but it's like, I really just, I worked my ass off and Brent can, I'd hang out with Brent and we would just go over songs and he would just really help me in every possible way to download all of this information in such a short amount of time, because I ended up having to do a gig with Slash shortly after joining. Like I ended up, once I got the gig and I got that call, I just was like, all right, well, give me a set list, give me anything. And I still had to do an entire tour in Australia and do all sorts of shit before I came back to LA, film a music video with Slash, do all these performances in a weekend. And I was just out of my mind. But I don't know, man, it's the hard work. You have to do it and you have to be dedicated. Like you said, dude, it's like there's people that wing it. Like, there's no way there's no way you're winging that. You know what I mean? Like, what I went through, I had to work so hard to make it happen.
And that might, that's not meant as a discouragement to people that are looking at the
and
music.
I hope nobody feels that
no,
way. Yeah.
And I would think that hopefully it would drive people, but it's not easy. But then, I think the reward pays off in the end with the hard work, like anything in life. So is that your moment then, Frank? Is that like, obviously you had set out for some goals to make, either make a living in music or, was there sort of like a list that you threw against the wall and said, there's 10 things I need to accomplish in life? Obviously, Slash is a very specific example of landing a big gig, but you had already had a big gig ish opening, on the Avril tour, and then wherever that was going to go from there. But the Slash thing comes along, and it just proves to you that, I've always been a proponent that, like, you strive to achieve, and then you achieve the top of one level, which is the bottom of the next level. And
absolutely.
Then you get to the top of that level, and then it's the bottom of the level above that until you find your comfort zone where you're at the top of the level that you want to be at. So I'm sure it never ends, but this is a great, measuring stick for you as far as like, it'll just keep going as Slash wants to keep going and as hard as you work. So do you consider this that moment for you where you've accomplished a good substantial portion of what you set out to do, or is just this the beginning for you? Like, what is your thought on that and where you're at right now in this journey?
I mean, I think the jumps were very large, from St. Rose to potentially playing with Cirque to a touring gig to Slash, in a very short amount of time, to where it was a lot to take in. And, you never get used to it, but I also think this is something for me that I feel like it's an amazing thing to do. But, I definitely have set my sights on other things in the future. This isn't the end. I would never say that. I definitely think that, because I'm always writing, and I want to do my own thing very soon, and I'm going to. But, there's other gigs that come by and the time off, and it's really cool. But it's also like, it's an interesting spot to find yourself in and think like, okay, as a guitar player, it's like I'm playing with Slash, and it's so much fun, and it's, there's a lot of freedom within it, like when we write and all that. And then I think about how I'm in the studio with Slash writing my own guitar parts, but if it's me and Lady Gaga or someone in that of that stature, and when you're playing with them, you're very much not a part of the program. I mean, you're there, you're part of the solar system, but you're not really. I don't think she's going to be consulting you for chord changes and some ideas, if that makes any sense. But I don't know.
But that happened for you. That happened for you on the last Slash record, correct? You did have a lot of. I think I saw Slash talking about that you made a pretty major contribution to the record.
Dude, I was. It was so cool, man, because the backstory is that when I like I said, I joined when the first Conspirators album was literally finished. Like, I was in the studio with Brent when he was doing some auxiliary percussion. And I just I think it was the day of the audition, or the day after. Like, sorry, that's what we did, the audition, and then I went to the studio with Brent. That's what it was. Sorry, I'm going off track here. But then the next album was World on Fire, so I did the entire Apocalyptic Love tour, and then Slash said, I'm gonna do all the guitar parts, rhythm and lead. He called me and told me that, and I was like, that's fine, whatever. And I think to gain Slash's trust, it's like there's a certain amount of time, and he's the most interesting guy I think I've ever met in my life. There's no one quite like him. So for him to trust you, it takes some time, and I don't blame him. So World on Fire, he did it all on his own, and then that whole tour, we would be writing at sound checks, and that's just that's the way we write, because Slash is so busy. It's like when we're on the road, every sound check is a new riff and a skeleton of a song. We'll just come up with the frame. And once that tour was over and he did the Guns N' Roses reunion, we ended up going straight into the studio and working on everything. And he asked me, he's like, hey man, I really want you to be on this album, and I want you to do your own thing. So I had so much freedom with everything. So like, the structure is Slash has a riff, he gives it to Brent, and and Todd, because Brent gives it's Slash's thing is he loves to play along with the drums first, and then Todd's always there, kind of follows Slash around, and then I just put my thing on it. So I would get the songs in Dropbox, and I would just write everything I wanted to it, and then I presented it to the guys live, like in person in the studio, and then I'd say for the most part, 95% of what I came up with is what you're hearing, and he was really receptive to it. So it was fun, man. Like, and that's something I'm so happy to be a part of, because I had never played on a major album before. You know what I mean? Like, I've recorded a ton and I've done all sorts of stuff, but it's not really noteworthy. But my first major debut was with Slash, and it was very much my own parts. And I think about, like, if I joined like Pink's band, or and I love the pop world. I always consider like what it would be like, but I feel like it just wouldn't be the same. And ultimately, my next step, I feel like, would have to be on my own. It would have to be something that I write and I go out on, go tour and do my own thing on.
And what a band to be to be given the freedom to do that. Like, and all friends aside, because 3 of his band guys are friends of mine, and
right.
To me, if I walk back and remove this from the equation, he, in my opinion, has one of the best rock bands on the planet. And so just sheer power coming off that stage and talent coming off that stage. You've got Myles, one of the greatest rock voices. You've got Todd, one of the other greatest rock voices, who plays tons of stuff. You got one of the most solid drummers on the planet, who just nails every gig on the planet. You've got yourself in there providing some killer backup to this, and just your own freedom that he's giving you. You've got one of the single greatest guitar players on the planet. This is like a mixed bag of, and you see a lot of bands come together, but I have an opinion, and it's my only real moment amongst this thing where I just say, I honestly feel like Slash, his actual solo band, is one of the best rock bands on the planet. And it's the ultimate, opening act for anything, what I mean, that goes out, and it's the ultimate headlining gig in both cases. It's really killer. If you're going to a massive festival and it's Slash leading into Iron Maiden, like,
absolutely,
or so it's like,
there.
You've been there, and it's
like
just
Aerosmith, and I'm with you on that.
There's no possible way that people are not,
I think about it as a fan before I joined the band. Like,
totally.
To your point, like, I think about when they were going around, they were opening for Ozzy, and I was like, dude, you guys gonna go see Slash and Ozzy at Mandalay Bay? That's the coolest shit ever. Like, that sounds so, like, that sounds like a great gig.
And then you go and it's just hit after hit, and then it just becomes about the records at that point, because he's out playing the gun stuff before. Now you guys are playing the records. So it's a 2.5 hour, what solo artist can really pull that off? And it really speaks to the band that he put together. And so for him to give you that freedom to join him making a record, and let's keep in mind that, and I'll get off this topic in a second, but let's keep in mind that every single thing that he writes, people are like, this is amazing. Before Guns were together, it was like, okay, this is all Slash's solo stuff. And then the Guns thing happens, and people are clamoring a bit for them to put out new music. But then Slash puts out a monster rock record, right? With one of the best rock bands on the planet. So then it has no choice but to up the Guns N' Roses stuff that's going to come out. So everyone wins. So I just think that it's a really cool thing for you to be a part of, and to have that be so, and I know you've been playing a long time, but to have that be relatively early in your journey,
absolutely,
is a huge feather for you. So
I appreciate that. Yeah. Cause, and I sit back and I would listen to the demos that we did that day, cause every single day we'd record the album every day live. And it was just so fun, because I felt like you're at the top of your game in that situation. You're playing the entire album once we figured out all the parts and how we were going to do it, we'd record all 12 every day for 2 months or something like that, and just tweak and this and that. And you just feel like you're in your, top tier zone, just feeling good as a musician and being creative. And I just felt like that was such a wonderful, just across the board, cool experience for all of us, because we're all laughing. Everybody's got a great sense of humor, and everybody's digging everybody's parts. It was just, you come up with the songs. So you guys come up with the songs, and then
you press play. Elvis, is a producer, right? You press play and record for everyone listening at home that doesn't really understand the process. But basically, you press play and record, and you say, we've got 12 songs. You play all 12 songs. You stop, do some tweaks, come back Tuesday, play all 12 songs, take it home, tweak, come back Wednesday, play all 12 songs. How long before the record is like, how long before you go, we're good, everyone agrees? Or is it, or is it Slash is like, that's it, we're good? Is it still a collective, or is it one of those things where it's like, I think we got it, this is the record?
The way we did it was, we would, once we had all the arrangements, it was just us and the engineer. So it was the band and our engineer, his name's John, and he was the best. So he would feed us a click. We'd walk in for the day, we'd sit on the couch, catch up a little bit. Okay, we ready to do this? All right, here we go. And we go in the live room, put our in-ears in, and just John would feed us the click to song 1. We'd play it, and then if we'd be like, how do we feel about that? Let's do it one more time. Okay, no problem. Click comes in, knock it out, and then after a while, we'd be like, hey, why don't let's go inside the actual control room and listen to that one. So we listen to it and be like, okay, why don't we try this? Record it again, and then ad infinitum. So we just do that over and over. And once we hit that point, it was like, okay, well, I think it's time for Elvis to come in. So we'd play the songs for him live, and then he'd go, okay, guys, let's do this. Why don't we move this here? Let's maybe shorten this, and then halftime here. And then once we got that arrangement, it was time to actually go record. And so it's just so much fun, man. Like that entire experience was just, it felt like a whirlwind, but I loved it because it was so real. And I feel like a lot of people don't do that. Like, what bands that's how Slash works. You know what I mean? And what bands are actually doing that, where they're doing it live for the most part the entire time, instead of just recording piece by piece. And then making an album and calling it a day. You know what I mean? We had rehearsed it to where we could have played that album live on tour the next day. Just a whole lot of craziness.
Be sure to catch part 2 of Brent's chat with Frank on next week's podcast. And if you want more music talk, get it with me, Todd Hancock, and the Toddcast podcast. We're on iTunes, Spotify, and SoundCloud. And this week's podcast features ABC's Rising Star winner, Jesse Kinch.
I absolutely love what was happening in California in the late 60s. I mean, you had the Mamas and the Papas, the Jefferson Airplane. You had, obviously the Beach Boys. They were a California band.
There's Jesse Kinch, the winner of ABC's Rising Star. We were talking about that rock documentary, Echo in the Canyon, which, by the way, if you haven't seen it, is incredible. The Brenton on Tour Music Cast is brought to you by the Toddcast Podcast. Follow us at Toddcast Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And you can hear the podcasts, the full interviews, and a lot more through toddhancock.ca. Come say hey.
As always, a huge thanks to my friend Dean Blundell and his team at deanblundell.com for hosting me on his network. This week, part 2 of my chat with Frank Sidoris, guitar player for Slash and Slash's solo band, Slash featuring Myles Kennedy and the Conspirators. We're talking adversity on the road. We're talking coffee. We're talking touring. We're talking making it. You name it. It's there. Thanks to my friends at Varia Brewing. They're going to send you something really cool for your kitchen. All you got to do is like, share, do the whole thing, get it out there, win yourself something rad. It makes all sorts of stuff, coffee related, tea related, you name it. Make sure you check it out, variabrewing.com. Thanks to Todd Hancock and the Toddcast Podcast for presenting this. Listen to him on the outro. He's got some cool stuff happening on his podcast. Part 2 of my chat with Frank Sidoris starts right now.
Let's rock today. Out on stage, I get to bring all of these people together for 3 hours.
You're listening to the Brenton on Tour Music Cast, brought to you by people who love music, people who make music, and all things, music. You still don't really know who he is, but he just helped you stop drinking shitty coffee on the Coffee Cast. So, get off to John, grab a ghetto blaster, hit record and play at the same time, and learn a thing or two about music. It's the Brenton on Tour Music Cast. Here's BD.
So one of the things Frank, that I'm doing with this series is obviously educating on music and some of the process of the industry and what we do for a living. But one of the other things I want to focus on is touring in 2019 and beyond, and staying fit, staying healthy, and what people are doing to be mentally fit, what people are doing to stay physically fit, all the rest of it. I know you travel with a pretty sober band, so that's got to be a big win, because there's a lot of people that don't travel with heavy sober bands. So there's one of these things where you get to experience different things on the road, perhaps, than people always going to the pub or whatever. So
right.
What's a routine like for you? How are you staying fit out there?
Well, I mean, this last touring schedule was easily the most intense that we've ever done. Because normally, like, and I think, you can agree with this, like a standard touring, at a minimum, I think it's like a month and a half usually, right? Like some people go out for a month and come back. But this last tour we did, and remember, this is because Slash had Guns dates to do later. And we have to, for the Conspirators to exist, we have to fit between the Alter Bridge schedule and the Guns N' Roses schedule. So instead of us having an entire album cycle, which is usually a year and a half to 2 years, we had to do the entire world in 9 months. So we went back to back 2.5 months here, covering all of Asia and Australia, and then flying from Australia to Europe, and then coming home for a month, and then doing another 2.5 months in South America and Europe again, and then another, it's just back and forth chaos. And, for me, I've always loved to fly, and I've always, I love touring. But this year, personally, and to be completely honest, and I hope this isn't discouraging for anybody, because, my band can 100% attest and back me up on this one, but it was the hardest one, because, it's one thing to just have a long, crazy schedule, because that's fine. I'm happy to do that. But this last one was rough because of, of course, the out of nowhere diagnosis of my then girlfriend, now wife, finding out she had cancer. And so it was the first time where, and I'm kind of going off on your point here, but like to your point, to stay healthy, it's like, nobody parties in this band. Everybody's cool. The regimen is mostly like, hey, what's the Wi-Fi password? Okay, I'll see you. Let's get coffee. That's pretty much it. But I like to go to the gym. I like to do certain things to just get a regimen, get a daily thing going. I wake up, I go get a coffee somewhere cool, somewhere nice, and then I come back and I'll try to see something cool in that city, whatever's going on with my drummer, and we'll hang, and then it's gig the next day, and then rinse and repeat. But this is the first time I'd ever been faced with a serious issue or anything heavy going on back at home, and there's nothing you could do about it. You just feel helpless, right? I mean, I don't know if you've ever experienced anything like that.
I mean, I've lost people to it. I've for sure.
Yeah.
Knock on wood, at least at this point in my life, immediate family, no. But it's, I was out last year for 7 months, so to have that dropped in the middle of anybody's life, especially when you're, in the middle of an album cycle, and it's, everyone's supposed to be expected to be, on top of their game all the time, that's got to be a massive distraction. So your wife, Allie, calls you, says, this is what's going down. Or did did it just drop on you, or was it one of those things where you guys had an inkling kind of going before tour that there might have been something up?
Yeah, there was definitely some, I guess, I don't know. There's a couple little hints and, things that were kind of like, well, this isn't right. Let's get this checked out. So I remember I was in Poland, and she's like, so yeah, I went to the doctor today, and they were like, yeah, this is something we need to check out. And she said, the scariest part for me was, and of course, anytime something like this happens, you just want to go, that's fine, and let's go get it checked out, and you're fine. And almost always the doctor's like, oh, no worries, hey, this is fine. This happens all the time. Take this, give it a month, you're fine, whatever. But in this situation, she said, I'll be at the doctor today, and the time difference for me, it just sucked because, like, she could have given me the answer in 30 minutes, but I had to be on stage for 2 hours at that moment. So that show in Poland sucked. I mean, I had a great time, but it's like internally, I'm like, man, I hope this is good news. And when I get off stage, I call her immediately, and she's like, look, this is the look on their faces when they noticed this certain thing. They were like, I'll be right back. Let me go get a second opinion. And then they said, look, we need to do a biopsy and send this away like right now. And then I don't know. I was super concerned. She was super concerned. And then I think it was a week, an entire week goes by. And now I'm in England, I'm in Manchester. And I distinctly remember having a really good day. For the first time ever, it was a sunny day in Manchester, England. And it was awesome. And, I love it out there. Same regimen, got a killer coffee, had amazing Indian food, and I'm thrilled. And got a haircut, if you could believe it. So we're having a ball, and then I get a call from Allie that night. She's like, I got the results, and I have cancer. And just to hear her say it, she has cervical cancer. To hear her say it, it was just earth shattering because, she's scared. I'm absolutely terrified. I'm thousands of miles away, and I still had an entire month or something to go. Month and a half, and I'm just sick. And at that point, it was like this change to where the remaining dates of this world tour, I just wanted to go home. And I didn't even care, man. I didn't want to be on one more flight. I didn't want to be in one more venue. I just wanted, playing the gigs helped.
Being on stage was the only thing that really took me away from what was happening. And the lines at the airport, the lines and everything queuing up, traveling, as we all know it, it was just extra miserable. Every minute just felt like days. And, just being on the road it just felt so much worse. It's something that we all use to get away from everything. We all love it so much for so many reasons. That's our life. That's what we do. It's our career. And for the first time, I just felt like I can't be out here. We had so many more dates to go after even that tour specifically. So, trying to find the right doctor, trying to just get everything going, having all these questions that just don't have answers. It just felt like just so much pressure, and to not be there for your girlfriend, my now wife. It was just something I couldn't really, I don't know. I feel like my band saw me and they didn't know, actually. I didn't tell them until we were in Paris, like weeks later, So I was also keeping this as a secret. So it was kind of, there was a lot to think about. But once the entire band found out, they were just incredibly loving and helping and understanding. And Slash was there for me. But I don't know, man, just until we found the proper hospital, which was in LA. And, we live in Vegas, as I said. But until we found that hospital, there was no actual relief. And I just kept thinking like, man, how am I gonna continue this tour? How am I gonna, I need to go home. And I had that decision made almost, like I really don't know what to do. And I think once we finished that European tour, I came home and we ended up going to California to figure some stuff out. They had a game plan set in stone. And back to touring, I really felt like I shouldn't be on this next run. So I spoke with my tour manager, and she was the only person I really said anything to about, considering not going. And
she had her own issues. Thankfully Cheryl was out there with you.
We really owe so much to her, because without her, we wouldn't have had her doctor's referral, and her doctor's referral was the doctor we ended up going with for Allie's treatment. And it just completely saved everyone, saved Allie's life. It's just a total godsend.
And Cheryl had gone through all this just about a year prior, correct? So
yeah, but like I'd say a year to two, and it was she ended up going on tour and doing her own thing, man. It was crazy, like throughout chemo and everything. It was just so she knew.
Well, kudos to Cheryl, and I'm sure that was a big help for you to have her.
Oh my God, to have someone that's gone through it means a lot to the person that's new to the situation. Huge.
And then you're thinking to yourself, like, I don't know, like I just can't do this next thing. Allie's probably like, you gotta go.
Exactly.
The band guys Slash, they're all in your corner, like whatever you need to do. But this is your, this is your break. You've made it, right? You in the band, and this is a big thing for you.
Yeah.
So what's next? What do you do?
So what's so cool about Slash in this situation was that, I still haven't spoken to him about my feelings of trying, considering staying home and being with Ali. And luckily Cheryl reached out to him on my behalf, and I get a phone call from Slash, and he's like, "Hey man, we haven't talked about this, but just let me know what your thoughts are. Are you considering staying home?" And I was like, well, I didn't want to breach that subject until I had someone that could actually come in and cover, right? I didn't even want to talk about it yet. And he was just like, well, look, I mean, we can make this work, and don't worry about it. Like, you got to do what you got to do. And he was very understanding, because in my mind, I'm thinking like, well, great. I don't want to throw a wrench into the machine here. Like, just considering that we have South America and then an entire Euro tour, all the summer festivals, right? I was like, I don't want to ruin this and set everybody back. But thank God for our close friend Corey Churko, who played guitar for Shania Twain, and he's also in a band with Brent and Todd on their own side project. And he said, he was more than happy to do it. And it was cool because, he's known Slash or he's met Slash, and he's known Brent and Todd for years. So it was just an easy fit. And I sent him everything. I sent him like just clips of all the little tiny things he had to learn in these songs, all the little bits and pieces. And so Slash and I had this agreement of like, okay, well, why don't you just come out for South America and part of the European tour, and then you just go home, and then Corey can fill in. And that specific, I think it was 2.5 weeks that Corey filled in, was when Ali had to go through her first chemo treatments. So luckily we had a little bit of time off prior, so I could be there for radiation and all that. But Corey gave me that time to actually be there with her for, chemotherapy, which is a huge leap, and it's very scary. So, and the entire world, man, all the fans, everybody was just, all the support, it just helped so much. So, we ended up closing out the last tour of our world tour in the States. So, Ali only had, I think, 2 more treatments, and I had to miss 2 of them. But, it was that last tour where I had a lot of thinking to do, and a lot of just reassessing, because I was all over the map, man. And I felt like I never wanted to tour again, even though I was out there on kind of a victory lap of like, okay, we're in the home stretch of this treatment and everything's looking good, but do I want to do this again after this entire, this situation? And it's almost like I immediately had this kind of PTSD situation where it's like getting on another plane, doing the whole run again, being away. It just felt like something I never wanted to do again. And, I have gigs coming up with other bands and right now currently. And what's good is that some time away from everything and not having the weight of an entire world tour, or, leaving across the world again and coming back, there's not having that right now makes me feel, I don't know. It made me feel a little bit better. Like, okay, I can actually be home with Ali and relax. And now I'm starting to feel like myself again. Like, okay, well, no crazy thoughts. I'm good. I know what I love to do, and I've reassessed, and all after all of that, I feel like, okay, I still love what I do, and I know everything's gonna be okay. But it was just that lesson I had to be taught in a pretty crazy way. But I'm feeling good.
What's the update on Ali? How's she doing now?
So as of yesterday, she's 2 months cancer free.
There we go.
Yeah.
Beauty.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations to you both on that. I'm sure everyone's sleeping a little bit better at the house. Obviously, a long battle ahead to maintain and keep it going. But you got through the first hurdle, and with lots of support, a lot of people there to help. And I think it helped all the way around. I got to think, it's got to help your brain. It helped your brain and gave her peace of mind. So congrats to you both, my friend. That's great news.
Well, thank you. That means a lot.
All right. So moving on, a question I wanted to cover off. You've talked a lot about playing, getting opportunities for Slash to, be, on the records and the trio process and all the rest of it. And you touched on a bit with, Corey Churko, where you had to send him to parts. What's your best definition of your role in Slash's band. And what I mean by that is, what is in essence the role of the rhythm guitar player? Because I know you do get to go off a bit, but what is the role of a rhythm guitar player? Because every kid that starts playing guitar wants to play guitar solos, but everyone's, but Todd's playing bass instead of guitar in this band. You're playing rhythm. So what's the role? What's the role of the rhythm guitar player by your definition?
Well, being in this band, the rhythm guitar duties are way. I don't know. Without trying to sound like, man, it's pretty hard. It's one of those things that playing with Slash and knowing how meticulous he is, and just what he needs. He needs that he needs that foundation of a loose but yet very tight drummer and bass and guitar. It's like that. Our section specifically, I think we're very fortunate to have each other because we all lock in. But rhythm guitar role in this band is, there is a lot of pressure. Just to make sure that it's tight but it's loose. That's kind of our. I don't know. That was always the way I played guitar. I felt like I always gravitated towards. Obviously, like you said, when you start playing the guitar, the first thing you kind of want to do, it's like you just want to play. You want to play leads and you want to rip the guitar, right? It's like that was the idea. But I learned a lot of. Like I said, I like a lot of funk and soul music. So playing kind of groovy stuff like that was something I really loved and I did gravitate towards. And Stevie Ray Vaughan, specifically, there was that song, it's called Rude Mood. It's like that really cool instrumental. And I just remember learning this song kind of early on, but I always loved the crazy rhythmic parts, the really hard to play rhythm stuff. So being faced with given the opportunity to play rhythm in a band with Slash was actually something I embraced and I loved. I was very excited to do because it's, I don't know, man, it's not as easy as some people like to say, because it's not, maybe the glory's not there, or they don't feel like you're in the front killing it. Or maybe that, I assume that's what a lot of people think, but it's something I'm really proud to do. And it's something, especially with him, of all people. Like, you're not going to play leads in Slash's band. You do take leads, but it's something that made me really sharpen and really hone in and focus on locking in and playing tight and loose at the same time, if that makes any sense.
All people need to do is really put on a set of headphones and to find out the little bits of all these intricate recordings and all this stuff. People just, they hear what they want to hear, but
true.
Without those bits,
absolutely, man.
It's just not the same. And I remember talking to Fitz about, playing drums in this situation. And, everyone wants to kind of come in and go, I've got the gig, so now I get to, be super drummer. And it's like, well, no, you got the gig because you played the parts.
Exactly.
And then you can work within them. And I think that's so great about this band, is that everyone's playing the parts, but they all have their own identity within.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah. Cool. And with the gun stuff, before we really had the catalog we do as the Conspirators, before the 3 albums and everything, we were playing, 85% Guns N' Roses stuff, or 80%. And then there was some Velvet Revolver. And these are songs that are well known. They're, Grammy Award winning bands, and they're songs that you just don't mess with the parts on. Like, you're expected to do it. And as a listener, when I watch a band play a song, even if it's a cover band doing Led Zeppelin at a bar and the guy doesn't play that one little thing that John Bonham does that everybody knows in that song, it's like thumbs down. You know what I mean? So I immediately, and Brent's the same way, same with Todd. It's like, you got to play these parts the way they were written. Then there are certain places and certain times you can take liberties, but still, like when I was playing, for example, like Night Train by Guns N' Roses, and I played that Izzy Stradlin solo. I played it verbatim for about 5 years. I just played it exactly the same. And then after a while, it was kind of like, well, I could play this, but slightly changing certain things. Like you said, you kind of add your own personality to it, but there's a way to do it tastefully. And then there's people that kind of step all over a part that everybody has known for years and is looking forward to. And it's like, you can't do that,
Speaking of Fitz, do you think he ever sleeps?
I
know he's probably more caffeinated than both of us combined, and I'm pretty caffeinated now, and I know you are.
I sure am. Yeah, he's just on another level, man. And it's funny because I used to do this with him. Like we toured and we'd be in New York City, and he'd be like, "Yeah, let's go get a we get a coffee, and it was like midnight because we were just eating or something out in the city, and then I used to
As
get
you
a
do
coffee with it. Yeah,
in Vegas.
exactly. And we'd get coffee, and I just, even in Australia, I remember just having coffees late at night in the lobby, and it never affected me. But after a while, I was like, I can't keep doing this because I'm up till 8 a.m. all of a sudden, and he somehow just passes out, and I was like, all right, no more drinking coffee with Fitz after midnight. But he'll still do it. He's just on fire all the time, and the caffeine intake just daily is just staggering. It blows my mind.
He's a hell of a dot connector, so it's really great that he got you involved in this because I think it's a really great fit.
I can't thank him enough, man. Seriously,
for your boss, it's been really cool to see that. What's next for Frank? What are you doing, man? Like downtime right now with Slash, so you working on some solo stuff, or what are you doing to keep busy right now?
So I'm definitely writing a lot, which is cool, and I've been, and really after this year that we've just discussed, it's just being home and not doing anything for a couple of weeks was really nice. But now I'm starting to feel that itch of like, okay, well, I need to work on me and my guitar playing. And, as I like to do, I love to practice and I love to feel like I'm going somewhere with it. But, there is a gig in the next couple months, likely the new year, that I will be a part of that I can't talk about yet, but I'm very excited to talk about when it gets announced. And then locally, I'm actually, I love jamming around and playing in town because Vegas is such a cool city to do that in. There's always something going on. And I've always loved the killer old school venues that we have that still exist. Like, for instance, there's a place at Caesar's Palace. There's this old boat that they have, they constructed a venue in, and it's been there since the 70s. So I'm actually working on putting this thing together with a couple guys. We're going to do this, like in LA, do like a jam kind of thing, but not just like, we're not playing Highway to Hell. We're not going to play what you expect, but it's a lot more like kind of soul or like, James Brown, cool stuff like that. So I've done it once before, but this is
that what a Frank solo record would sound like then? Because Myles has got the acoustic record. Todd put a rock record out and then an acoustic record out.
Right.
What do you think a Frank solo record would sound like?
Mostly spoken word and self-help, but I don't know. Sorry. No, really that, like I say, I'm really all over the board with what I love. And I feel like all of those artists that I've grown up with, when they filter through me, I still feel like my album there will be, I don't know, like in the pie chart of it would be predominantly, you'd feel that there's rock there, but I still feel like you would have, I don't know, it wouldn't just be as straightforward and driving as most of the bands today. I feel like there would definitely have to be that swing and soul there somewhere. You know what I mean? But I don't know. I'm so indecisive that we'll have to see, really. But I'm going to take the thousands of voice memos I have and everything I've got and just throw it at the wall and see what happens here. Because I don't know. It all the stuff that I have written and recorded, it all, in your head, you think this all sounds so, like maybe too far, or, too spread out on the spectrum. You know what I mean? Like outside of a genre, but it's all actually, it all sounds pretty cohesive now that I look at it as a whole. So
when you put it all together though,
yeah,
you never know where it's going to go. So
yeah,
that's killer. What's your, I'll let you go here in a minute. I know you've got some things to do, but what's your go-to Frank record?
Go-to, wow.
Like this is on once a week. It's a record that's on once a week, or at the very least twice a month or something. What's your go-to that, gig's done, you've just rocked out, 100,000 people, you're hanging in the bunk, and it's like this, I need this right now, and I need it at least 3 times a month or twice a month. What's your go-to?
Wow, good question. That's a fun one. Well, record-wise, it's funny, man, because I'm going through my Spotify right now just to confirm. And who I've been listening to a ton is Earth, Wind, and Fire. I'll just say that right now. I've been listening to a lot of Earth, Wind, and Fire. That's the way of the world. But
keeping it real.
Yeah. I'm a huge fan. But I think it would be right now. I'm in a big Wings. I love Wings, and like I always revisit Paul McCartney in every step of his journey. And every couple months, I will go through like an entire, like maybe 2 weeks of just coming back to all the Paul stuff and the Beatles, all the Paul stuff in Wings, and his solo stuff in general. So album wise, it's kind of tough to call though. So I mean,
he's still putting records out, which is crazy, and he's gone all over the place too. So, I mean, you can't even put. I mean, people want to put McCartney into a box, I guess, because of the Beatles. But I mean, you got to go. Geez, there's so much stuff he's put out. He's still putting them out. He's still touring and going, and all that stuff still stands up. So,
and it's still so good. Yeah, it's just amazing, so just amazing.
Band on the Run. Then you got the Foos covering it, and they bring a whole new element out of it, and then it sounds deadly. And I don't know.
Absolutely,
there's so much stuff, man. It's great. So yeah, well, that's a great band to go back to.
Yeah, no, I feel like he's got so much going on. It's like I really do love Paul. I have the same birthday as John Lennon and Sean Lennon. They have the same birthday. If you didn't know that, fun fact.
I did not.
So I was always a John guy my whole life. I grew my hair out because of John, and embraced my glasses because of John, and all that. And so as time went on, though, I was a George guy, and then shortly after my George studies, I went right back to Paul. And Paul, I've confirmed for years that he is just my favorite Beatle, and everything he does, like I will always revisit. And it's just what a perfect person to go to for songwriting and just kind of help and education in that. It's Paul McCartney.
Well, I've got a stat that was emailed to me about the podcast listener base that I have, and half of them are Paul fans, and the other half, are John fans. So we just lost half. But
sorry, dude. Sorry.
You know what I mean? Great. I mean, I'm trying to build this thing, but it's fine. I'll just
let's just delete this. Start over.
Scratch and start over. But
right.
Oh, good, man. That's great. Great stuff, dude. Well, I look forward to hearing anything you got coming out. It's you've had a lot of influences to pull from, not to your family growing up in the business, now playing with one of the greatest guitar players in the history of music, surrounding yourself with great players and having one of the best rock bands on the planet still.
I really appreciate that, man. That's awesome.
There's just a lot to pull from, and I'm anxious to hear what you got in the can there. And I'm sure
I'm excited to get it out, man. I need it for myself. I really do. And I'm very excited for it to happen. So
where can people find you online, Frank?
If they want to get in touch with me, I'm on Instagram. It's just at Frank Sidoris. And then same with Twitter. And on Facebook, it's just Frank Sidoris. I'm the guy with the long hair and the guitar. The other Frank Sidoris is my dad. He's got hair, but he doesn't have a guitar. So it's a whole thing.
And the funny thing is I think even though you're the youngest guy in the band, I think you're the only one that can actually grow a beard.
I think so too.
I think this is a real thing.
/can, I think, and I've seen him do it, but he refuses. So I'll take that title.
There it is. Beard guy.
So
I can't let you go until we get to the core of where this thing started for me, which was in coffee. And my first article I wrote about coffee assholes, which yes, which coffee asshole are you? Because we all are in some capacity.
Sure.
We either drink, you know what I mean? That's like I refuse to drink, anything but the best stuff in every city, or you got a little soft spot for a Starbucks locally, or you refuse to. Like today, I've got a Tim Hortons
nice.
Across from me in Glasgow, and I'm not going to.
Incredible.
I'm not doing it. I'm sorry. I'm just not doing it. I'm going to go find local, and that's just the way it's going to go. So I'm just an asshole about it. So what kind of coffee asshole are you, Frank? And before you, if I put you on the spot anymore, I need to know your top 3 coffee joints in the world, and go.
Okay. So top 3, my number 1 easily is, it's a weird name, but it's Brother Baba Budan. So Brother, then BABA, and the next word is BUDAN. It's in Melbourne, Australia. It is the reigning champ for coffee for me, hands down. It is just unreal. And that city embraces it, and the culture and the flavors and everything. They just really know what they're doing. And number 2, man, good question. It's funny because you were in Manchester and we were talking about Pot Kettle Black. I wouldn't say that was my number 2 by any means, but I love that hang. But damn, Now you're putting me on the spot.
Well, I believe I did send you and Fitzy to Wendelbo in Oslo, Norway.
And that was yes, I did go there. That place was unbelievable. That was super good.
Ones. And then then I'll narrow it down for you down to Las Vegas. What are you loving in Vegas?
Oh, okay, good call. Public Us. So it's the word public, PUBLIC, and then us, US, but as one word, Public Us. And it is a fun fact about that place is they have a machine you can only get from the Netherlands. It's handmade out there, and it's called Spirit, I believe. And so a fun little quick story was I was in Amsterdam at one of my other favorite places. It's called Back to Black Coffee. And I was walking around. I just found this place, and they had this machine that I was just, I was staring at it because it looked so cool. It looks like a big satellite. So I took a photo of it, and I had an amazing coffee there. And then Allie back in Vegas hits me up and says, hey, there's this new place opening up called Public Us. You got to come check it out. So I come home, and I go to this place with her, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me. They have that same, but the bigger version, the same machine that they do in Amsterdam. So I ended up meeting the owner, and I'm like, dude, so where'd you get that? And he's like, oh, it's built in the Netherlands. I was like, no way. And so I believe at the time they were the only place to have it in the States besides a coffee shop in Seattle. And so coffee wise, they're award winning. They do the competitions. They'd compete in the US and would just kick ass, and they'd always win, and their food's amazing too. So I highly recommend Public Us. And that's not just like good for an American coffee place. It's actually held to the standard of the Australians, and that's their whole thing, is that the owner is well traveled and knows what he's talking about. So that's definitely cool. That's a place to go. I recommend it for any traveler. And
everyone goes to Vegas. So there you go. And I'm also going to send you, Frank. I think Fitz is going to go. We're going to send you down to my episode 4 and 5 guest, Jeremy Gersey.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a roastery in Vegas.
No way.
Made coffee for Korn, and he's in a whole bunch of hotels there.
How fun!
So he's he's invited you guys down to come down and roast some beans. So
I'd love
to connect the dots, and get co-conspirators over there.
Absolutely.
To do some coffee and all the rest of it. And okay, well, I'm gonna let you go. You didn't tell me what kind of asshole you are yet, but I guess we'll get back to that.
So
yeah.
Let me say, I am the the type of asshole that everywhere I go, I'm looking for the top, 5-star joint, and in any facet. Like if the coffee's amazing, that's all that matters to me. But I've become the type of coffee asshole that now that I'm home and I live in a certain part of town, I used to drive every single day across town to go to Public Us, but now I am settling on the Starbucks right next to my house at the moment, and I'm okay with that. And I feel like we all should be okay with that to a point, because as a touring musician, anybody that travels, your Starbucks will always taste like Starbucks, whether you're in Tokyo or Berlin or Secaucus, New Jersey. It's consistency, and that's kind of what you want. But for as much flack as it gets, it's easy for me to go to. So I'm kind of, I don't know, would I land in the middle there? What kind of asshole is that? I don't know.
That's you're still, you're still there. I mean, have you ever spit coffee in someone's face because it was so bad? Have you ever been like, this is just terrible coffee?
No, but I could change that. I can make that happen.
There you go. Maybe if you come and try the Tim Hortons in Glasgow. That'll do it. Because, to your point about Starbucks, it's yes. The other side of it is like, I've touched on this before, but I had an Americano here. And if there's anybody from Tim Hortons listening, please take note. I had an Americano, a simple Americano in Glasgow before, and it was just terrible. And I don't know how you mess that up. So I'm off. I know,
right? I know.
I'm ridiculous. Off it. And I even went full on Canadian last weekend. Watched my son play hockey, and I'm like, I'm going to go to Tim Hortons and I'm going to get an Americano and I'm going to give it the old, try. And they screwed it up again. And that was in Canada. So to your point, I agree with you. Go to the Starbucks, do the thing. I can't do it in Mexico or Glasgow or the Philippines, where all these Tim Hortons are. I just can't do it. It's not going to happen. So I know Fitz can do it. I can't do it.
Yeah.
Thanks for the time. Thanks for the time, Frank. It's awesome to have you on here and tell people a little bit about your journey And congrats to you and Allie for coming through all the hardships. And I wish you guys nothing but the best for the future, and look forward to hearing some new stuff from you down the road.
Oh, it's an honor. Thank you for having me. And if it helps anybody, being faced with some crazy struggles like that, there's always light at the end of that tunnel. And I saw it firsthand. So, I hope everybody can. Hopefully nobody feels discouraged by any of this, but I'm feeling good, and everybody else can too. So thanks for allowing me to explain this on your platform, brother. I appreciate it.
Anytime. Coffee soon, my friend.
You got it, brother.
If you want more music talk, check out the Toddcast podcast. My name is Todd Hancock, the host. You can find us on iTunes, Spotify, and SoundCloud. Our latest podcast features legendary punk rock band Lagwagon and their singer Joey Cape.
It's like natural progression stuff to go from hard rock and metal and that heavy stuff that kids like. When you hear punk rock and you mix it with Ronald Reagan, and pretty easy to identify with.
There's Lagwagon singer Joey Cape talking about traveling down the path of punk. The Brenton on Tour Music Cast is brought to you by the Toddcast podcast. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We've kept it simple. All platforms at Toddcast Podcast. And you can hear the podcast's full interviews and a lot more through toddhancock.ca.